Hi everybody. My assistant told me that we should shoot a video for some basic troubleshooting. I thought it was a great idea. And since, as all my videos, I'm as filthy as I can be and my hair's a hot mess, I said, hey, get the camera. At any rate, this is our 48 volt bike. This is actually where it all started. This is the Super Eagle. Some of you may have this. Many of you probably have a, this is a Screaming Eagle, excuse me, either a Super Eagle or a Raptor. Same power plant, same battery. If something's not broke, don't fix it. So what I'm going to show you will apply to your scooter if you have a 48 volt. The 36 volt, a lot of it will apply. I'll differentiate the differences. The first thing I want to cover is sometimes people will call and on occasion say, my bike is on, but it's not running. The first thing, if you come a little closer and see this here, is your brake would be on. Keep in mind, if the brake is engaged at all, it'll deactivate the throttle, even though the bike is indeed on. You'd be surprised how many people say they had the brake on and the bike wasn't running. So at any rate, make sure your brake is off. Now the bike will indeed move. It's in reverse, okay? Now, here's something about the brake. While I'm here, I want to cover this. This is with the brake on. Come in a little closer here. This is actually the brake being on. See how it's flat with no gap? The bike will not move. This is not, there's a little gap here. Can you see that with the camera? Excellent. There's a little bit of a gap. There's an extra tooth there, and now the bike will roll. That's not really with the brake engaged. Again, to engage the brake, squeeze it from out here, get some leverage, and then go ahead and let it go with that being flat, and that is actually the parking brake. Now, this bike, great example, this bike is 4 years old. 4 or 5 years, actually. I think it's 5 years old. I have not charged this bike in 4 months. I want to show you something, the difference of lithium ion. Still fully charged, okay? That is why all of our bikes now are lithium ion. While I'm talking about let me talk about charging since I mentioned that. Of course, you take your charger, and it would have helped if I had this already plugged in, but at any rate, you want to go ahead and plug your charger into a power source. Of course, this end goes in here. And I'm covering this for a reason. I'm going to teach you about your charger. You stay right there. Okay. Now, I have folks say, well, my bike is charged because the green light is on. Now, here's the point I want to make. See, both the red indicates power, the green indicates that the bike's fully charged. But wait a minute, I'm plugged into air. So just because this says green doesn't necessarily mean that it's actually charging. Here's a good way to tell. Of course, you plug your charger into the back, the port. You all know where that is. It only goes in one way. You see how that light turned red, meaning that it's actually charging. You can also hear a fan running. My point is this. We want to make sure that it's actually taking the charge because, again, if you notice, it's green plugged into nothing. So you want to make sure when you plug it in that the little red light comes on, and you can hear the little fan running in here. There's too much ambient noise here with the equipment for you to hear it, but you can hear this little fan in here running, and of course it starts out red. Wanted to point that out. Another troubleshooting procedure. Suppose you're plugged into the bike, but the fan isn't running. A good way to tell if your charger is working is there's two little pins there. These two are used, the top one is not, right by the keyed section here. If you take a voltage meter and you carefully, without shorting it out, while it's plugged in, if you put your pins in here, again, the two plugs that are used, it doesn't matter if you have the polarity reversed, all that will happen is it will read negative, but at least you know the charger's working. A 48 volt charger, while it's charging, it will put out about 53 volts. That's a good little troubleshooting procedure, making sure that you don't inadvertently short these two together, which you shouldn't be able to do like this. Good troubleshooting technique. If your charger's working but the fan isn't coming on when you plug it into the bike. This is covered in another video, which I actually made when I changed this charging port. On the inside of this is a red and a black wire attached to the back side of this. Again, it's shown in detail when I changed this actual port out on my bike. It just wore out after time. But on the inside, if one of those wires is broken, you can wiggle them and it's not connecting. Then of course, even though your charger is plugged in here, it's not completing the circuit. So again, that's a more advanced. It rarely happens, but a good thing to check too, if your charger seems to be working, but when you plug it in, the bike isn't taking a charge, that the two wires on the back side of this pin are indeed connected and making connection. Now, the next thing I'd like to cover is adjustment of the brake, since we mentioned the brake. Here's a very easy way to adjust it, okay? Of course, you have the brake off, because if it's engaged, you're going to have a difficult time moving this, okay? If you lift up on this here, taking pressure off of this knob, again, compressing this spring, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. If you want your brake to be a little looser, then to the left or counterclockwise, this will be easier to squeeze. You'll need a little more time to stop, however, but it's a very easy, with no tools, way for you to adjust your brake pressure. That's a good thing for you to know. Tire pressure, while we're here. 45 pounds in the front is what it says, so right on the tire. I usually run 40 just to keep the number square in my head. And 85 in the back. I usually run 80, so just remember, 40 pounds, 80 pounds. This is for our 48 volt bikes. If you have a 36 volt bike, it's 40 in the front and it's on the tire, but as memory serves, it is only 40 pounds in the back or so. Again, it's written on the tire. Now, a good way to tell whether you have a 36 or a 48 volt bike. On our older bikes, which have the 3 batteries, your charger will be a black plastic one. Now, on the new Condor, the blue bike, we went to the metal charger. That's a 36 volt lithium ion. Again, we are no longer producing bikes that have the 3 batteries, okay? So, now, how to fold up the bike. I get this question on occasion. All of our systems are double redundancy, meaning if you open up this pressure clamp, it's sloppy, but you lose steerage. We did that for safety, so that if you're riding and this were to come open, it's a little bit sloppy, but you're not going to lose the ability to steer. So first thing, you open up this pressure clamp, you open this, holding it open, and then you simply pull up, and then the bike folds over like this. The same type of pressure clamp is underneath of the seat. You've released the pressure clamp, and then you push in on this little brass button, and of course your seat will pop up. Now, in this orientation, 2 of these will fit in the back of any hatchback. I literally got 2 in the back of a Mini Cooper wagon. You put the first one in backward, the second one in forward. They fit like 2 shoes. Okay, that's why they're in what's called a delta shape. That's a fancy military term for a triangle. Now, on this old Screaming Eagle, I don't have a back on it, but the same way applies if you have a backrest. Again, it has nothing to do with this mechanism. This bike, I just don't have a backrest on. These 3 cables, they only go in one hole. You don't need to force them. In other words, you can't mix these up, but you do also want to make sure that they are tight if you're ever having any type of issue. Verify that these are tight. There's one other thing. If your bike, let's just say, gosh, the bike is charging and it's just not running. I don't know, this happens on occasion, why it's not working. The brake is off, I've checked that. Underneath the battery cover, again, on the other video, you'll see this in detail. Make sure that the plug to the battery, which looks very much, give me a moment, the connector on it going into the lithium-ion battery looks like this. It's on the back side. It's very, very obvious. Make sure that it didn't work its way loose. So if you take the battery cover off and just make sure that that plug is seated so that your connection is indeed good to your battery. Those are a couple of very, very simple and common little things that will just confuse people. So we wanted you to be able to go ahead and know your bike and be able to do some basic troubleshooting on your own before you give us a call, in which case we're happy to help you. But the first thing they're going to ask you is the very things I just demonstrated in this little video. Now, folding. I just thought of something. Going back to what I said, our bikes all fold up like this. Again, this is a Super Eagle. All of our bikes do this. The Raptor, which is the black bike with the aggressive tire, it additionally has a little brake point here. I want you to imagine this. If you have a Raptor, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't have a Raptor, this doesn't matter to you. But it will fold here as well. I did that so that people could put these into the back of a pickup truck with a tonneau cover, or perhaps a low bay of an RV. Let me just verbalize to you how that works. Again, double redundancy. We have a clamp like this that opens up. Then you swing the clamp down so that it's at a 90-degree angle. And here's the trick. People, they open it, they swing it down, and they're like, the thing isn't breaking. Remember, it's double redundancy. I did that for safety so that if that little clamp were to open up, the bike won't fold on you while you're riding. It's a backup system. So what you would do is open the clamp, bring it out at a 90-degree angle, which is pretty obvious, but the part that's not obvious is it's spring-loaded. You hold the clamp and you pull back on it, which releases a little pin. In other words, it slides this way. Once you hear it click back, then this frame will fold in half again. Again, only relevant to the people who have a Raptor. Let's see what else I would like to cover for you very quickly. Learning your bike. You know, our salespeople are very, very good about explaining these bikes, but you're at a fair or a show and you know you're there to enjoy yourself, you were excited about your purchase, you may not remember everything that was told to you. So, let me go ahead and do a little refresher. Right here are 3 different power levels, a 1, a 2, and a 3. These are power levels, not gears. Remember, this is electric. So, in 1, this bike will go full throttle from 0 to about 6 miles an hour. On 2, it will go from 0 to about 18 miles an hour. On 3, you better turn your hat backwards because this thing will go from 0 to 30 plus miles an hour. So, getting to that, you can shift on the fly. If you need more power, in other words, the tire is starting to slow down or stop because you're on an incline, you don't kick it in low gear into 1, you want to kick up the power so that your throttle is availing to you more of the battery voltage. Just keep that in mind. And you can shift on the fly. You don't have to stop. If you feel that you need more power than what your throttle is allowing you, kick it up a notch. Because I'm used to driving this bike, leave mine in 3. And here's what I mean. Again, this is also covered in driving tips, but I want to touch on it again. Let me give you an example. I'm in 3, full power. I've got full range of the throttle, full 48 volts of lithium-ion power. Now here's an example. My tire spins. Well, watch, I'll show you how the tire spins right now. Wow, that tire's spinning. Something's wrong with the bike. No, you're giving it too much gas. Folks, understand something. With performance comes responsibility and a slight learning curve. Better to have the power and not use it than to not have it, especially in a hilly area. So, my point is this. I'm on 3, full power. And as I said, a lot of people, they will do this. I'm like, why are you doing that? Do you do this in your car with the gas pedal? No. Example, I'm in full power. Because I'm used to driving this bike, this is a good throttle. I can make it crawl in 3. If I give it lots of gas, she'll spin, okay? Now, the next thing I'd like to touch on is weight distribution. This bike will go anywhere. if it doesn't, it's operator error, and I mean that respectfully, 99% of the time. My bike's not going, my tire's spinning. Well, the first thing is, are you giving it too much electric? Not gas, but electric. You know, in other words, you're giving it too much juice. Let it eat. Let the bike do its work. But let's suppose you're on an incline. Now, pretend I have a backrest here, okay? A lot of you guys will do this. I want to, again, take it to an extreme. Same guy, same bike. See what I'm doing? How I'm leaning back? Well, it's not the bike's fault that the tire's spinning if your weight distribution is back. As an example, say, look, I'm barely going anywhere. Now watch what happens if I do the same thing, except by simply sitting up straight. You see? Full throttle, it spun a little bit, but did you see the difference? Again, all things being equal. Full throttle, full throttle. Now, I shifted my weight. Weight distribution is a factor, and you want to keep it in mind. This bike will go anywhere. If you are on an extreme incline or off-road in the grass, well, grass is different than pavement. It's the same bike, but physics is different. So again, you want to make sure you're not giving it too much juice or too much power, and you may have to slide your weight forward a little bit until you get momentum. Now, an example is driving in the snow or grass. If your tires are spinning or in the mud, you ain't going nowhere. So the first thing you got to do, again, is to get the tire to stop spinning. What am I doing wrong? Am I giving it too much gas? If the answer is no, then perhaps shift your hiney forward just a few inches on the bike. Now watch, I'll give her full throttle with my weight shifted forward just a little bit momentarily. Pretend this is snow or grass. You'll see how she'll go even then. That was full throttle. So weight distribution, keep in mind, slight learning curve. This bike will go anywhere. Remember that. If it doesn't, what am I doing wrong? Am I giving it too much gas, or is my weight too far back? Remember, gang, I use this as an example. Your back support is just that. It's a back support. It is not a Barco lounger, okay? I have, on occasion, people like, I sit back on it and gosh, she wants to tip over. Watch. Look, I'm sitting back, flip, flip, flip. No, but if you go do this, guess what happens to the tire? You would think it's common sense. It's like when you're riding a bicycle when we were youngsters. If you went up over a curb, did you pull? Of course you pulled up on the handlebar, but what did you do? You leaned forward. You sure as heck didn't pull up on the handlebar and decide to be leaning back because you know what would have happened, okay? At any rate, these bikes, I had a decision to make when I designed this bike. There's a balance between power, performance, maneuverability, and practicality. Here is my point. I could have made this bike in a fashion that no matter what you did, you would have, it won't spin, it won't flip over. It would also weigh about 200 pounds, be so long and so wide that you couldn't get it in your vehicle. So again, it's a compromise. This bike will go everywhere. However, you just have to slight learning curve. And you'll do these things without even thinking in time, okay? Just like when you ride a bicycle, when you first started riding a bike, you would turn the wheel to make a turn. And guess what happened? You either flopped over or you did nothing. Whereas a subtlety, you just learned to barely turn the wheel and lean, and magically the bike, without thinking, would go in the direction you want it to go. It works a lot the same way. I'm not implying that you need to lean, but the concept's the same. It's subtleties, and once you ride it for a day, you'll learn how to make it go everywhere you need it to go. And with that, I hope this helped. Take care and God bless.